Welcome to the Lessons for Luca podcast. I'm your host, Michael DeSanti, author of New Man Emerging, transformational trainer and coach, and most importantly, I'm Luca's dad. This episode is a special one. It's special because today is my son Luca's third birthday. And I wanted to do record an episode on the day of his birthday because I wanted to solidify 3 lessons that I've learned in fatherhood for the last 3 years. And my objective and my goal of this episode is to take 3 lessons of fatherhood and make them universal to all relationships. And I could not put into words, I couldn't put into volumes of books the amount that I have learned over the last 3 years, the amount I've learned about myself, about what I'm capable of, where my blind spots and short-sightednesses are, I should correct, where my thresholds exist, where I thought they were limited and I've blown past them, and places that have illuminated in me that I didn't know existed. Places in my mind, in my heart, my ability to provide, where I become impatient, where I step into a deeper sense of love. The last 3 years have been a journey, and they have shaped me in such a way that no other arena of my life has done. It's cliche that people say all the time that, kids change everything. The moment you have kids, they change everything. And I think that cliche holds some validity, but really what I say is that children reprioritize everything. One of the biggest things for me is that over the last 3 years, my threshold for nonsense has dramatically decreased. Having a son and being a father has given me a whole different focus, and it's reprioritized the way that I look at certain domains of life, of my financial life, my health, my physical, mental, and emotional health, partnership in my marriage. It's reprioritized so much of my bandwidth that has really crowded out non-essential and meaningless things. And it's highlighted and heightened the things that I now know are tremendously meaningful and valuable. That's been a huge, huge shift and reshuffling of my domains and priorities in life. Having my son has brought certain things in my consciousness to high alert. They have brought certain things to where I was complacent or lazy in my thinking or in my emotional being, and it has made me dial in a certain level of focus that I've never had, that perhaps I've never needed to have. And now those parts of me are online and highly alert. And it's also, fatherhood has also taken some of my edges and smoothed them out and polished them, especially the edges I used to carry around my heart. And my son has invited me into places where I didn't know love could be that deep. My mother always would tell me that having children was like having your heart forever live outside of your body. And my mom's a really wise woman, and I think her words are really accurate. And so in this episode, I want to take the 3 things that I've learned about fatherhood so far and make them as universal as I can so that they could support all of our relationships. The first lesson that I have really deeply learned is connect before you correct. So the last year, my son has been 2, and 2-year-olds throw temper tantrums. It's just part of natural development. It's part of him starting to orient to the world, understand who he is, what works, what doesn't, as his personality builds, as his worldview is building, as he's developing physically, mentally, and emotionally and spiritually. He is testing and coming into collisions sometimes with big emotions. And temper tantrums are simply big emotions with limited skill set. And for anyone that has young children, this is probably not that foreign. But what I've learned is that if I go and try to correct my son as he's having a temper tantrum, if I go and try to fix it, if I go and try to get him out of it, it will backfire 10 out of 10 times. And with all honesty, I truly believe that when children throw temper tantrums, adults get uncomfortable. And we operate and act and react out of a state of discomfort. I just want this to end. I want this to go away. I want you to go back to being a sweet boy and go back to playing, because truthfully, I'm uncomfortable. But what I've learned is that when we connect before we correct, we're establishing that I'm here, I'm with you, I'm present. What you're feeling is natural. You are going through an emotion, and emotions have lifespans. None of them last forever. And what I have found is that through connecting, it gives my son a different opportunity to connect and to even vibe to my nervous system. And what that looks like is when he's upset, when he's throwing a temper tantrum, rather than me stand over him and tell him to knock it off or get through it or hurry up and fix it, because again, I'm uncomfortable. When he throws a temper tantrum, I'm simply going against that instinct for me, and I'm actually taking a deep breath and I'm getting myself grounded first. I'm breathing, I'm resettling internally. And instead of going over and standing over him and trying to fix it, I'm actually going to go over him, get down on his level, make eye contact, and just breathe. And just allow him for 10 seconds or 15 seconds to know that I'm there and to know that he's safe. And I'll just simply breathe, and I'll just simply be present. After about 10 seconds or 15 seconds, I'll make a connection physically. I'll hold his hand, I'll rub his back, and I won't say a word. I'll just simply be there, establishing that connection. And then after 15 seconds of being present and breathing, then I'll use words. You're frustrated. This is called disappointment. I know you're upset. Do you need a hug? And what's happening is that as he is young and developing his inner state, he knows, or his body, his nervous system has something that he could orient to. He is upset, but if I stay calm and grounded and sturdy, it actually gives him the opportunity to match my breathing, to match my levelness or my sturdiness, my groundedness. And after he makes that connection, oftentimes he'll just move on to the next state. He'll go from disappointment to contentness, or he'll go from frustration to curiosity and go pick up another toy. And so as I'm developing that posture and way of being for myself, I'm understanding now that connection is required before correction. And although 2-year-olds throw temper tantrums, so do 42-year-olds. They're just 42-year-olds' temper tantrums are just more sophisticated. We withdraw, we shut down, we get angry, we lash out, we get passive aggressive. So our temper tantrums as we're older are just a little more sophisticated than my son's. But the reason I established this as the first big lesson that I've learned is that people, when they're upset, when they're activated, when they feel like a need isn't being met, so often as partners and spouses, husbands, wives, coaches, brothers and sisters, we want to go in and we want to fix things for people. And oftentimes that backfires, because the thing is that people don't want to be fixed. People want to be heard, understood, validated. They want you to make an effort that in their dark times, in their states of being activated, that they want to establish connection, but they just don't have the language or the emotional skills to do it. And so in your partnerships, in your marriages, in parenthood, so often people just don't have the language that what I need right now is connection. I feel alone, hurt, isolated, confused. And when we go to establish that connection, oftentimes people let their guards down when they feel heard and validated, understood, or when you show a willingness to just simply connect with them. Hey, tell me what you're going through. Tell me where you are right now. Is there a way that I could help or support? And if there's not, I'll just be in it with you. And establishing that connection is really at the heart of where most of our activations and our reactivity and our frustrations come from. And then once we establish that connection, people are a lot more open to, hey, let me have your point of view. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Have you been through this before? And if so, what did you do to get out of it? But just establishing that connection before you go in and try to control the situation and fix the situation or fix the person or offer your advice or your solutions, if the connection isn't established first, I'm trying to get solutions through a wall that is up or closed, and it's never going to work. It's going to backfire 10 out of 10 times. And then you're going to feel frustrated and that rejected because your advice wasn't taken. And then they're going to feel anxious because I feel bad about earlier, but I didn't feel like the connection was made and I couldn't drop my guard. And then we get caught in these rejection patterns and these anxious patterns rather than simply understanding that when someone is activated, make sure you're establishing a connection first before you try to go in and fix anything. Again, with 2-year-olds, it's more obvious, but with 42 and 52 and 62-year-olds, it takes a lot more fine-tuning and a lot more nuanced. So that's my first big lesson and takeaway in the last 3 years of fatherhood. Connect before you correct. The second biggest takeaway that I have received in fatherhood, I would say, is meet their needs, but manage their wants. And as a father of a young boy, needs are essential. They're built into all of human beings. We have the need for certainty and predictability and familiarity. We also have the need for excitement and play and adventure. We have the need for significance and autonomy and sovereignty. And we also have the need for belonging and community. And so my job, my number one job as a father, is to meet my son's needs. Does he have a level of certainty and predictability? Does he also have a level of play and adventure? Does he have a level of significance that he is his own unique individual? And also, does he know that he belongs to our family, our unit, the nucleus of our life? When we meet those needs, we're doing it in thousands of different ways, but all humans, children and adults, are all programmed with those 4 basic needs. They are in our DNA and they never go away. I want to make sure that all my relationships, not just with my son, but with my wife and with my friends and with my clients, that those 4 needs are always met. Managing wants is a different story. My son might want to go and play in traffic, but that runs up against and comes into friction with my need and his need that I provide and protect him and create safety and certainty. And so 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, they want a lot of things, but we get to manage those wants. As his caretaker, I want to make sure that, hey, listen, I can say no to preferences. I can say no, we don't have that toy right now or that time right now. That's not what we're doing right now. I get to manage his wants, but I always meet his needs. And the way that translates, especially to adult relationships, is the way that I approach this and live it and coach it is all emotions are acceptable. All behaviors are not. All emotions are natural to human being. And those emotions even are anger, frustration, impatience, pissed offness, whatever that is. Those are all acceptable. They're part of the human experience. But that doesn't mean all behaviors are acceptable that match it. And so in our adult relationships, my wife is free to be angry or upset or frustrated. She has every right to have a bad day. But she can't come home and punch me in the face about it. So that's the distinction that we want to make. And although it's more of a dramatic distinction, we want to make sure that we're allowing our partners and our friends and the people in our lives to have a whole range of emotion. But that doesn't mean they are free to behave any way they want, to say whatever they want, to throw daggers at us, as emotionally and with language and with posture and with behaviors. I want to make sure that I'm understanding that I am allowing the people in my space to have the range that they need to go through and process what they're processing. But we also want to have healthy boundaries and healthy agreements with each other that says you're free to feel what you feel, but here, this crosses the line. That's detrimental to me. It's detrimental to us. It's inappropriate. That's uncalled for. And so in our relationships, we want to make sure that that line is constantly communicated, because the greatest thing we can do in our relationships is give each other clear blueprints of how to love each other. And so when we allow each other to have our experiences, when we allow each other to have our range of emotion, when we allow each other the space to figure things out or to reach out and connect or to gain insight or feedback or advice, we're giving each other blueprint. But what we want to distinguish is that I want to make sure that I'm not allowing inappropriate behavior to constantly seep and pollute the space between us. So emotions and behaviors are not the same thing. And we want to make sure as adults in mature relationships that we're allowing each other to have this range of emotion, but also that we are creating a sense of safety and respect and dignity, that we're not stepping over healthy thresholds and just spewing our discontent or our dysregulation or our unorganized inner world onto our partners and then saying, well, you just deal with it. And so those are really, really big ways of operating and giving and receiving blueprint in relationship, is to be able to communicate and to say, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm experiencing, this is where I'm frustrated, and take ownership of it in a mature way and then communicate it. So it's a big thing that I've learned, or even more deeply learned and solidified from fatherhood, is meet needs, manage wants. All emotions are acceptable, all behaviors are not. And so as a father, I'm constantly allowing my son to have his range of emotion while also correcting and interrupting behavior that will hurt him or hurt him with other people. And so that's my second biggest takeaway. The third biggest takeaway has been an interesting one, and it is, don't try to make a happy kid happier. And this is an interesting one that might require some explaining. But my son has this huge horizon and world ahead of him, and he is in a place right now of mostly imagination and magic. And he could be entertained digging a hole in the dirt outside. And oftentimes, as parents, or I'll speak for myself here, I'll look at him in his happiness and in his contentness and say, it would be even, greater, it would be even cooler. Let's do this, this, and this. And a lot of times that'll backfire and blow up. And he'll say, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm playing here. That's not that's not that. That's not this. And then he'll actually get scrambled up about it. And 10 out of 10 times, that's on me. Rather than just allow him to explore and dig and get dirty and create his own adventure and imagination, which he's completely content with. A lot of times as a parent, I'll try to put my worldview onto him, my backstory and history on him, and my preferences and my interpretations, and they backfire. They backfire, especially if I'm not present and we haven't established that connection like I mentioned before. And a lot of times that imagination, it almost gets stunted and turns into frustration. And so I don't try to make a happy kid happier. If he's content and happy playing and imagining and doing this, I get out of the way. If I'll get out of the way and I'll allow him to express or go through his whole inner adventure, or I'll take it as an invitation to go into his world and actually feel like a kid again and re-stimulate and reignite even my imagination that arguably gets dulled or stunted over time, over decades, over disappointments, over, places in life that get rerouted or pivoted suddenly. And so my son is inviting me into this whole new imagination, or maybe rekindling my old imagination. I live by a saying that says, we're teaching our children how to live, but they're teaching us how to relive. And he's constantly inviting me into a deeper sense of exploration and adventure and imagination, and the little things that he just lights up about that otherwise I would step over or go unnoticed. He's now re-inviting me into a whole different way of looking at the world. And the way that translates to our adult relationships is, I don't want to put my interpretations, my assumptions, my worldview onto someone else that may be highly irrelevant. They have a different experience than me. They may have different objectives and preferences, and they may have different values or things that are important to them and priorities. One of my mentors in transformation, personal growth, used to say, as a coach and as a trainer, always remember this: nothing is less relevant than what I think you should want or have. Nothing is less relevant than what I think you should want or have. And I remember when my mentor told me that, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Is that when someone says this is important to me, I don't want to come in and say, well, that shouldn't be important to you. This should be. You should want this. This should be valuable. This is how you should live your life. Because the moment we do that, as partners, as coaches, as friends, people don't sit there and say, wow, thank you so much for telling me what's important to me. On the contrary, people actually get defensive and they posture up and they close down. And so this lesson for me has been I'm not trying to make happy people happier. I'm not trying to inflict and instill my worldview on everyone and tell everyone you should live the way that I do. Because what's important to me may be completely irrelevant to you. And so I live from this place that nothing is less relevant than what I think you should want or have. If you're happy, be happy doing what you're doing. If you need some correction or some guidance, I'm happy to give you my experience, but my experience isn't the truth. It's just simply my experience. And by establishing that, we could explore together. We could invite each other into where do we come together? Where do we agree upon? Where do we see the world the same way? And also, with dignity and respect for each other, we could see where does our worldview come into collision? And then where does it disagree or conflict? And then how do we learn to live with that? And so I want to make sure that I'm not just taking my worldview and dumping it on my son. I want to make sure that he understands that he's part of this family and part of the value system and the nucleus that we provide, while at the same time, he's his own unique individual person. There's a great saying that I don't remember who said it, but I think it to myself all the time. Life should be a daring adventure taken from a secure base. Life should be a series of bold and daring adventures from a secure base. And that's ultimately what I want to make sure of in all of these lessons that I teach my son, is that you are part of a nucleus, a family, a unit that is filled with love and values and ways that we treat each other and ways that we see the world. You're part of that base, and go make life a daring and bold adventure. Go take risks. Go be on an exploration of life, of who you are and how you navigate the world and what your gifts and values and skill sets and gifts to the world are. Go be adventurous enough and bold enough that you're willing to take risks, knowing that you come from this secure base. Know that you have a home that you could always come back to, where love is the main ingredient of how we live and how we live and operate with each other. And so there is this fine line where we are constantly inviting each other into living and reliving, into imagination, into creativity, into generosity and adventure. And so those have been, again, there could be volumes of lessons in the last 3 years, but those are three really big takeaways of the last 3 years. It's that going backwards, I don't want to make a happy kid happier. I don't want to inflict my worldview on everyone else because somehow it's worked for me. What's important to you and valuable to you, double down on it. Meet people's needs, manage their wants. Everyone is built at the heart the same way. We want certainty, we want excitement, we need a sense of significance, and we need to belong to something. Those never go away. Meet those needs in your partnerships and you'll thrive. But manage wants, have clear blueprints, have clear agreements, create clear and healthy boundaries. And the first, potentially the most important, connect before you correct. People don't want to be fixed. They want to be heard. They want to be listened to. They want to be validated. They want a willingness and effort to be understood. So make sure that we connect before we add in our 2 cents, add in our advice, add in our solutions. So connect before you correct. I can't imagine how many lessons are ahead. I can't imagine all the things that will present themselves over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 30 years in fatherhood. But right now I want to attempt to make some of these lessons as universal as possible. What a ride it's been. Happy birthday, Luca. You have opened up rooms in my heart that I didn't even know existed. And you've reopened parts of my imagination and my love for life and the world in ways that I could never repay you for. And what a journey this has been. And I cannot wait for the adventure and the excitement that waits ahead of us. I love you, son. Thank you all for being on this journey with me. Till we meet again, be a good man, live a good life, and determine each of those for yourself.